afternoon, and I thought today we'd just real quickly touch on the subject. How do you set your guitar up? How do you play it or set it up so when you play it, it doesn't buzz? And I just got a buzz. That buzz was me hitting the string wrong. But anyway, so how do you set this up so that it plays well? Well, when I got this guitar, and I just got it recently from Mackenzie and Marr. Mackenzie and Marr is a really great company that sells guitar at budget prices, I'd say. And this is made all solid woods. They're made by violin makers in China, brought back to Canada, where they make sure they're set up to their specifications. And so when I received this guitar, the one thing I noticed when I pulled it out of the case was that the action was just a little high for my likeness. So is that because it's a bad company or a bad guitar? No, not at all. In fact, I think a lot of times companies will leave the action on the high side, not necessarily out of spec. And this one I don't think was out of spec. It was just on the high side. But it's done on purpose because they know you're going to make adjustments to the way you play, to what you like. Some people like high action because they want to be able to dig into that guitar with fast rhythm, or maybe they have a stronger strum than others. I tend to play lightly. So because of that, I can get away a little more with a very low action and not get the string buzz, simply because my playing most commonly is finger style, and I'm not always playing aggressively, I guess. Although I do expect, even when I strum, that I don't have a buzz. So I've got to have both worlds, but there's a balance. It's just like when I was a kid, we played on a seesaw. They don't have seesaws anymore in the playgrounds because they found that they were dangerous. And I think it's true. I'd go play on a seesaw with my brother, and because he was heavier than me, that thing was out of balance, and it gave him a lot of room to make my life miserable by dropping the seat of the seesaw so that he'd see me flying up, almost flying off of the thing, or he'd get off and let it drop and I'd fall to the ground. That was kind of mean on his part. We were actually very good friends, but I think sometimes siblings can be hard on each other. So anyways, and he was no exception. Anyways, but so seesaw, in order for that to work and to have a good time, just rocking back and forth, you got to have a balance. And when it comes to setting up the guitar, it's not just one thing, it's not just one number, but there's a balance of things that take place to get the guitar set. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, I recently had somebody ask me, well, what numbers do you use? Well, that's just it. I have a range of numbers, but I don't use just one number. I use a balance of the numbers. I'm looking for the best that guitar can give me because it has so many variables. Start with the fact that if this is a new guitar, but if it was a vintage, most commonly there's a variable in the neck changes. The neck starts pulling forward, for instance. And so it actually is getting close to needing a neck reset because of it. There's nothing wrong with that guitar. It's just that over time it changes. That's a variable that you have to keep in mind. Other variables, there's a truss rod. How is that set up? Is it bowed back this way? Is that rod doing, looking like this? Or is it looking like this? Or is it straight? So the way your truss rod is set up. The nut, while it's not huge differences, it does make a significant difference. And the saddle, where is it set? Is it too high? Is it too low? The top of the guitar, as it ages, it can bow up. Even though it's not so much the action, but if you have frets that are coming up, they'll cause string buzz. And it has nothing to do, you're actually reset just fine, but because that one fret is coming up and needs to be addressed, it causes string buzz. So from the strings to the truss rod, to the saddle, to the neck angle, to the nut, to the frets, I mean, there's so many different things you have to think about. In this case, this guitar, when I received it, it was a little bit high, and I know it's a new guitar, so I don't have to deal with the frets. Looked really good. The neck looked beautiful. When I looked at the bridge, this not pulling up. I'm not able to get a little piece of paper underneath that bridge in any place, meaning that it's starting to come free from the top. It's a beautiful guitar that I'm looking at. It's just the action's a little too high, and it's still within spec, but it's not the way I like it. So the first thing I do is I think, okay, do I want to make a change on the truss rod and bend that neck back a little more? Or do I want to come down here to the saddle and shave some off? Well, it came down to, let's check the neck relief first. And that's usually what I'll look at first. So what I'll do is I'll take here it is. I'll take a capo and put it on the first fret. So now we've eliminated the nut in terms of any influence it'll have. And so we set it here. And then you just take your finger and press down at the fret that's closest to the body of the guitar. And then at the 7th fret, I press down and I'm listening. And I want to hear just a little bit of a play. If that had no sound at all or wasn't moving at all, I'd say that the neck was bowed back too much. If I was seeing too much dance, I'd say that the neck is bowed forward too much. And you can measure that. You can get a feeler gauge like these. This one's a 0.005. I just happen to have this because, that's another thing. Guitar specs change from company to company. The Martin SZ13 is acoustic guitar. They want their relief to be set at a feeler of 0.005. Whereas if you go to Fender and look at their acoustic guitars, they're going to say 0.008. So, there's a difference in company. In this case, I have a 0.005 here. And when I press down, go to the 7th fret, there's just a little bit of room between the bottom of the string and the top of the fret, which means this is actually set up nicely. It's probably at about if I had the right feeler, it's probably 0.008, maybe 0.007. So I don't want to make any changes. This truss rod is set perfectly. So you see what I mean? If I would have went over here and just said, I'm not going to make any change here, I'm just going to truss rod this thing, you might be bending it back too far, and now even though your action feels right, you end up with string buzz in the higher areas of the guitar. So you want that relief to be set right, and if it's set right, don't make the changes there. Do what I did, come down at this point, and you're going to make the changes at the saddle. So how much do I take off? Just get yourself a string gauge, and I usually like to see the measurement from the top of the 12th fret to the bottom of the string at about 0.09. And if I can get away with 0.08, I have a couple guitars, and this is one of them, that I was able to get away with that, and there's no buzz, and I felt like I was still getting the tone that I wanted out of the guitar, simply because it was set up so beautifully to begin with. And in this case, when I got this, I think it was like at 0.1. It was at 0.1, and I wanted to see like 0.08 to 0.09. So what you do is you take the difference between where it is and what you want, take the difference, subtract it, and double that number, and that's what you take off of the saddle. And once you remove that, put it back in, you should be able to come back and find the number that you're looking for. And so I did. I think I took off 0.02 off of this. When I came back, right now I'm reading between 0.08 and 0.09, and I'm very, very happy with that. And as I move through to the low end, the high string is at 0.07. I wouldn't want to go much lower than that because I am running, you could be running close to, while I'm not hearing any buzz. If I start hitting these notes really hard, well, actually, it's not bad. But this guitar is just exceptional the way that everything's set up. But you do run the risk of buzz getting it too close, okay? So if you're a bluegrass player, you're going to want it higher, okay? They're in there digging away with, with an aggressive playing, aggressive strikes on the strings. And so they not only like a medium string, which, by the way, your strings will make a difference. If I go right now, take this one, which I have set up perfectly, and I've got 5312 string gauge on here. If I decide to go to a medium string gauge, I'm going to have to make an adjustment because it'll raise the action. So your string's another variable. And so the bluegrass player usually plays a dreadnought, and they like to put medium strings on. Actually, a lot of players that they'll tell you that I wouldn't do anything but medium string. But they tend to need a little higher action to handle that. So as you can see, and I've run out of time, there's a lot of variables that go into setting up your guitar. And if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. I would at this point say, go find somebody that is. You probably have to pay them $80 to $100 to get a nice setup on your guitar. And I think it's worth every penny because you could have a beautiful guitar that's expensive, or you could have a cheap guitar. But either one of those will sound bad if they're set up wrong. And either one of those could sound absolutely wonderful if they're set up right. So I don't care if it's cheap or if it's moderate in cost or expensive. That has nothing to do with it. That setup has to be right in order to enjoy playing that guitar. So there isn't one answer to guitar setup. There's not one answer to, what numbers do I use? I'd say I use enough change numbers. The numbers are set to not get string buzz, but yet not lose volume. And that's a balance. It's like a seesaw. I can't have one weighted more than the other. It's got a balance. Okay? All right. Well, I hope this makes sense. I hope I didn't bore you to death with this subject. And I know it's different from what I usually do. But I did want to share that with you because I think it's important. So with that, I hope you have a great day out there.